Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today on this Wednesday, hump day, October 6th? 6th day of October, 64 degrees. It's beautiful fall weather. That cool air helps us to sleep. And I hope you're getting good rest and being refreshed. Um, Wanted to let everybody know that's watching, we are having live classes now in writing and math. We are live. You are welcome. Let me know by email or a text or a call, and you are more than welcome to join. We'd love to have you. So, moving on, let's talk about today how we analyze an official document, break it down. So, what we're doing is looking at a Supreme Court decision and we're breaking it down. Um, what does it mean? What is the purpose? What is the intention in this case of a constitutional amendment in regards to the public good, meaning, look at that loop, meaning everyone for the benefit of American society. And during this time, did we really mean liberty and justice for all? So we are looking at those different things. So, what I'd like for you to do first is take a look at this gentleman. His name was Homer Plessy. Homer Plessy, um, let's make this bigger. There we go. Homer Plessy was called an octoroon in New Orleans, where people were designated into race um, down to the not the eighth and the one, which meant that this man, looking at his picture, was 1/8 black. He tried to ride on a train car in the white section. We're talking about times of segregation. And I'll give you a little more detail about those times. He was arrested. He was not allowed to get right in the white section, which is, probably cleaner, safer, all of those things. And he fought that. But the Supreme Court said, hey, you got the Negro section. And so the Supreme Court said segregation is okay as long as the facilities were equal. So then they said separate but equal is constitutionally protected. But remember that facilities were rarely, if ever, equal. Let's dig deeper. Let's dig deeper. Let's see. So let's take a look at, we're going to work in Nearpod today. Please, God, work. Work for me. All right. There we go. Um, no, is that where I was? Yeah. So let's get started. Have you heard the phrase separate but equal? And if you've heard it before, what was the context? What was the situation being discussed in which you heard it? So, what does it even mean, separate but equal? In today's mini lesson, and this is a brief lesson because the real analysis of these constitutional amendments is really involved, but you need to know about it in a superficial way. So, you're going to complete some various activities to check our understanding. Let's read. Um, Let me go here and click on this so I can make it bigger. There we go. Breaking the rules. Oh, didn't do that. So says breaking the rules. Trying to just give you a better view of this. Okay. So you may have heard the saying some rules are meant to be broken. In 1890, a man named Homer Plessy broke the rules. The state of Louisiana had passed the Separate Car Act, which required railway companies to have separate but equal train cars for Black people and white people. A person who sat in the wrong car had to pay a $25 fine, which in 1890 was quite a bit of money, or go to jail for 20 days. So you can probably guess that the cars for Blacks weren't as nice as the ones for whites. Not only were they not nice, they were dangerous in many times and where people actually were sat. Um, Not only that, it seemed unfair to make Black people sit separately. So a group of citizens called the Free People of Color in New Orleans formed a committee dedicated to turning this law around or repealing it. They convinced Homer Plessy, who was 7/8 white, so he would have looked white. There would have been nothing about him to indicate that he had Black blood. 7/8 white. They wanted him to test the law by sitting in a whites only train car. And when he was asked to move, he refused and was arrested. So here's the issue: is it constitutional to make Black people sit in a separate train car from white people? And they said yes. The decision was yes, because the Constitution only protects legal equality, not social equality. What? What? So the argument was that Louisiana's Separate Car Act violated the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. The 14th Amendment says that states may not deny to any person the equal protection of the laws. And so the argument was that requiring Black people to sit separately from white people implied that Blacks and whites were not equal. Not equal. So the Supreme Court disagreed. It saw separate train cars as an issue of social equality, not political or legal equality. It said separating the races did not take away civil or political rights. Justice Brown wrote for the court saying that if one race be inferior to the other socially, the Constitution can't put them on the same level. Justice Brown said there had been separate schools for Black students and white students for a very long time. And many court cases had decided that the states were allowed to have these segregated schools. Keep in mind, this is in 1890. So this is about 30 years after the end of slavery. So out of the 9 justices, only one dissented or disagreed: Justice Harlan. He wrote that our Constitution is colorblind and does not tolerate classes among citizens. He said the court's decision would lead to racial hatred and increased attacks against Black people's rights. So what? The court decision set the stage for many more years of discrimination against people of color. Plessy's case gave rise to a new doctrine: separate but equal. States were free to pass laws that kept the races separate, called Jim Crow laws. Though the facilities were supposed to be equal, they rarely were. A separate but equal doctrine would not be abolished until the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So from 1890 to 1964, right? How many years? Some 1890, 10, 70 some years, right? Until 1964. So that's it. That's the Plessy decision. Ooh, I keep going to the wrong. So now that we've read that, here's a question for you. Come on, take your time. It's okay. We got nowhere to go. Let's see if we can do this here. So, something argued, who argued that Louisiana's separate but equal Where are all the words? Do we have all the words? Violated the 14th Amendment. Wait a minute. 14th Amendment to the Constitution. We need separate and equal. Separate. Okay. The amendment says states may not deny to any person within their jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Everyone is entitled to equal protection of the laws. So who argued this? Plessy argued this. He implied that requiring Black people to sit separately from white people he argued that he implied that requiring Black people to sit separately from white people stated that Blacks were inferior to whites and therefore not equal. The Separate Car Act. So it was actually called the Separate Car Act. He argued. Let's see how we did. Plessy argued that Louisiana's Separate Car Act violated the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. This amendment says that states may not deny to any person within their jurisdiction equal protection of the laws. He implied that requiring Black people to sit separately from white people argued that Blacks were inferior to whites and therefore unequal. We'll skip this lesson. So now, think about this based on what you've heard. How did the decision in Plessy versus Ferguson impact society before it was overturned? And again, it wasn't overturned until when? 1964 with the Civil Rights Act. Do we see some of the effects of the case today? Do we have separate and equal education? Do we have separate and equal um, neighborhoods? Do we have separate and equal environments in the neighborhoods? Do we have factories putting out pollution in neighborhoods that tend to be mostly poor and of people of color? How is the justice system? How does the justice system react? So, do we have actual segregation still? Do we see any effects today? Let's see what we've learned. This is a what? Two questions for you. The decision in Plessy versus Ferguson ruled that it's unconstitutional to make Black people sit in a separate car from white people. Is that true or false? They said it's unconstitutional, or did they say it was constitutional? It's okay to have that. So we would say this is false. The separate but equal doctrine was eventually abolished in 1964. True or false? Well, we just said it didn't. It came with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So that's true. And here's an open-ended question for you. Oh, my open-ended question for you is, what has changed? How has Plessy versus Ferguson impacted our society? How did segregation, what did it do to the quality of living for certain members of society? Did it make it better? Did it make it worse? Was separate but equal really something in fact? was equal? Was separation, was the segregation really equal? That's your question. That's the question that you would answer. I'm going to skip that. And then we don't need to reflect on the lesson, but that is the lesson. Um, and if you don't understand, then I need you to go back and reread that sheet. Okay. I want you to understand and be ready to move on. And that's it. Okay. That's all we have for today. If you've noticed, we are mixing more science and social studies into our reading because what we're talking about is understanding, comprehending, and learning how to decipher um, information or passages, readings that we don't normally look at. All right. So that's what we're going to be working on more. So you're going to be seeing more science, more social studies, and also trying to find some articles that are relevant to us, what I've always done. So everyone take care, be well. If you're interested in that live writing class tomorrow or math class, let us know. You're welcome. We had a great first week. Turnout was great. I'm excited. Let's go. See you soon. Take care.